While it's true enough that no one is ever utterly indispensable, it's also true that some people, well, they leave a massive gap when they go. That's how I feel about my colleague Alan Jones's announcement today of his retirement from radio. And I'm sure that hundreds of thousands of listeners like me who tune in every morning, as I have for much of my adult life, are also feeling the loss of an essential part of their morning routine. But more than that, the loss of someone who's been a bit of an anchor in their lives. For nearly 40 years, first on 2UE and then on 2GB and radio stations networked around the country, Alan Jones has been rising at 2:30 in the morning, reading and digesting the day's news and then making sense of it for his vast audience. There are a few subjects from politics to sport to the arts that he hasn't thought about deeply. And having thought about things, not only has he a strong opinion, but also, and here's the difference, a good argument, underpinned invariably by facts. Sure, like just about all of us, Alan has his instinctive likes and dislikes, but he always does his homework and can nearly always back his opinions with an array of facts and figures and history to buttress his case. And unlike many in the media, he's always known the difference between news and opinion. With Alan, what you made of the facts was up to you. The facts weren't left-wing or right-wing to be chosen along ideological lines. The facts were simply facts. A thoughtful conservative, mind you, Alan's never been easy to pigeonhole. While being polite to traditionalists, he supported same-sex marriage because he said he didn't want to judge some relationships better than others. And while being in favour of mining, he's never liked coal seam gas, has he? Or open-cut extraction because of its potential to harm the water table and the farmer who lives off the land. Sometimes an interview with Alan could be more of an interrogation, but smart Labor politicians didn't mind the grilling because he'd always give them credit for having a go. For some, on my side of politics, at times, it could be a bit of a monologue, with the interviewee occasionally getting a word in with a well-timed, "Well, that's right, Alan," and little sympathy for them if they weren't across their brief. Unsurprisingly, for someone who twice sought Liberal Party pre-selection, who'd worked as a speechwriter for Malcolm Fraser when he was PM, Alan's view of the world broadly corresponded with the mainstream of the Liberal Party. But I am careful to say the members of the Liberal Party, the broad rank and file of the Menzies Party of forgotten people, not the factional powers that be that now run the modern party. Alan's instincts have usually been for lower taxes, smaller government, greater freedom, and as well, he's long been an advocate for small business, the family, institutions, as Tony Abbott would say, that have stood the test of time. He might now live in a lovely home in the dress circle of one of our biggest cities, but in his heart, he's still the son of a battler dairy farmer from the small Queensland town of Auckland, and for that, I love him. Because to forget where you come from, to me, is dishonourable. Alan Jones has never suffered the tall poppy syndrome, but he has had in abundance that other Australian trait, namely innate sympathy for the underdog, or struggle street, as he calls it. And that's why at the end of a hyper-busy day and before an impossibly early start that would break most of us half his age, he'd be out emceeing fundraisers for injured sports people and for vulnerable communities and, yes, many times for Liberal Party morale boosters. The man's an exceptional wordsmith. He was, after all, an Oxford graduate, teacher and a Prime Minister's speechwriter. Alan is a phenomenal correspondent in an age when letter writing is sadly a dying art. An advocate for those at the end of their tether, he'd fire off a letter to a minister demanding action that invariably achieved the desired result. He knew how the system worked in parliaments right around the country, and he used that to your advantage. I've sat through some of his staff meetings in recent times after his radio show had finished for the day, and I watched the way he punched through his paperwork in a style and manner that would put even the most efficient ministers to shame. In the end, like the national team rugby coach he was, in all of this, across his rich and varied life, Alan Jones has always just wanted Australia to win. I doubt we'll see his like again, and no one should underestimate his impact on our politics. Leaders, inevitably, they come and go. But Alan Jones has been a fixture on the centre-right, a kind of spiritual advisor to Liberal Prime Ministers from John Howard to Scott Morrison. Disagreeing too often or too vigorously with Alan, as Malcolm Turnbull did, was less a sign of Malcolm's political courage or intellectual independence than proof he and others never really belonged the conservative side of politics. So now this prodigious thinker, writer, talker, well, he's finally decided that 5 3.5-hour radio shows, 2 1-hour TV shows and 2 widely read newspaper columns every single week is just a little too much for a man just 11 months shy of his 80th birthday. But thank God we're not losing him altogether. Instead, in the future, he'll do the equivalent of just 1 full-time job rather than 2. Selfishly, I'm just pleased that the man who's become such a wonderful friend and mentor to me will still be a presence here on Sky News. A broadcaster of the like we'll probably never see again. It's been a brilliant innings, Mr. Jones, but the bat's not put away just yet.